They want to fundamentally overturn our free market economy and institute, it's not exactly socialism, it's not exactly Marxism, it's not exactly communism. It's sort of control without technical ownership of industries.
How do we as conservatives fight back against the Great Reset and the powers of the World Economic Forum that have control over our institutions?
My episode of my show today was literally on this topic. Are you guys ready for 45 minutes of this?
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, so when I first heard about the Great Reset, people talking about the Great Reset, I had the same question that everybody else had. I thought, well, is this a nutty conspiracy theory? What is this exactly? And so, as I do, being my nerdy self, I went to the source documentation of this. I thought, okay, well, to find out what this is, I can hear someone else define it, or I can look at who created it and listen to their words, them telling us. So I found that, of course, the person that is the inventor of this idea, he's actually not the inventor, but we'll get to that in a second. The person that's the biggest propagator of this idea is a guy named Klaus Schwab. He is the founder of the World Economic Forum. Now, you guys remember those stories about those 400 jets flying into Davos, this climate change summit, and yet all these private jets were flying in with this enormous carbon footprint? This is Klaus Schwab's private little rich people club. And these are the people that are pushing for the Great Reset. These are the people who want to go back to their individual countries, mostly Western countries, the United States, the UK, and bring the Great Reset. So how Klaus Schwab defines the Great Reset is he defines it as a repurposing of our capitalistic system, our free market economy. He thinks that it is time for free market capitalism to end. Now, what our free market capitalist society is called by these leftist folks, it's called a shareholder economy, meaning that each individual businesses are loyal to their consumers, as they should be, and loyal to their shareholders who want to profit, obviously, they're business owners. And what the Great Reset wants to do is change our shareholder economy to what they call a stakeholder economy. Now, that sounds pretty neutral. That sounds pretty boring. But if you look at how Klaus Schwab and his friends define stakeholder, they define stakeholder as anybody who has a stake in the business. Now, anybody who has a stake, not a financial stake. No. He defines stakeholder as this laundry list of radical leftist or social justice causes. So we're talking gender equity, not equality, equity. Racial equity, not equality, equity. We're talking climate change. We're talking all of these things you would find in AOC's Green New Deal. These are things that the radical left cares about, and these are things that Klaus Schwab wants to be taken into account, wants his businesses to be forced to take into account when they're making business decisions, because he thinks that those who have a stake in the outcome of these businesses are not just the shareholders and the consumer. He thinks it's, society. So what Klaus Schwab, like I said, I told you, this is a deep dive. I wanted to see if this was a real threat. I wanted to see if this is something to care about or something to dismiss. So how they're doing this is they're doing this through the banking system. Now, how are they doing this through the banking system? They have developed, the United Nations in 2015 developed a system of what they call ESGs, environmental, social, and governmental standards. This is a metric system. It's actually very similar to the Chinese Communist Party's social credit score because it rates each and individual business by their behavior as it relates to the environmental, the social, or the governmental standards as defined by the UN. And so this takeover of this banking system that Klaus Schwab and his friends envision forces anybody who wants to do business with these big banks to be rated on this metric, this environmental, social, or governmental system of metrics, which forces all of us, if we want to apply for a loan, if we want to do business with any of these big banks, to be ranked according to a laundry list of leftist social justice tactics. Now, this is not hypothetical. That was my next question. I said, okay, well, this is their goal. A lot of nutty people want a lot of nutty things to happen in our country. Is this actually something that we're facing? The answer actually shocked even me, and this is what I do for a living. Over 200 financial institutions around the world, including Bank of America right here in the United States, have already adopted these environmental, social, and governmental standards, these metrics, to rank businesses that do business with them. They have committed themselves, the CEOs of big businesses and big banks have committed themselves to actually operating their business on a stakeholder premise versus a shareholder premise. And furthermore, they plan to pay for all of these initiatives because obviously what's going to happen to our economy if businesses start taking into account not just the consumer and their shareholders, but all of these social justice metrics? What's going to happen? Well, they're going to fail. The economy is going to fail. This is going to cost a lot of money. And the radical leftists at the World Economic Forum don't care because they operate with something called modern monetary theory, which essentially in a one-sentence form is just, they think it's okay for the government, the issuer of currency, to just print all the money that they want. They don't care about debt. They don't care about deficit. Just print the money and spend it on your policies. And the Biden administration's advisors are adherents to modern monetary theory. So, very long answer to your question. The Great Reset is not only real. The Great Reset is not only going to happen. It is happening. It is happening. Biden named his Build Back Better agenda after the Build Back Better agenda of Klaus Schwab. And it is a portion of the Great Reset. They want to fundamentally overturn our free market economy and institute, it's not exactly socialism, it's not exactly Marxism, it's not exactly communism. It's sort of control without technical ownership of industries. But make no mistake, it will impact every single one of our lives and every single one of our decisions.